Hey y'all, so tonight was episode 3 of season 2 of Euphoria. It was titled Ruminations, Big and Little Bullies, and there's a lot to dissect in this one, and I think it was one of my favorite Euphoria episodes ever, if I'm being completely honest. I feel like there were certain elements to this one that are in all of my favorite aspects of Euphoria, or all my favorite episodes of Euphoria, and the humor here just really hit, the emotions here really hit, and there was a really nice balance of light and dark, so I'm really happy with this week's episode. So this week's episode opens with Cal's backstory, and boy do we get like an explanation for not only why he is as complex of an individual and as aggressive and has all this pent up emotion is because of his backstory, his relationship to his best friend Derek, and then his relationship to his now wife. And honestly too, we get a really good indication of how these generational issues are passed down in the Jacobs family. We see Cal's dad had a lot of the same demeanor and actions and kind of relationship with his son that Cal now has with Nate. We also see why Nate has such a messed up view as relationships, which is kind of nice because it's paralleled Cal at the very beginning, and then the closing shot of this episode is Nate showing up to where Maddie is babysitting with the flowers and ditching Cassie. But Nate and Cal have the same relationship that Cal had with his father, and Nate doesn't have a good romantic influence of a relationship or something to look up to because his parents' relationship is kind of messed up and was so strong in the beginning versus what it is now, and how his father cheats on his mother and has all of this resentment probably towards her due to how their marriage and the start of their family began. And like, ooh, that's a lot. In the after credits of this episode, into the Enter Euphoria, Sam Levinson was discussing how they are not necessarily trying to make you sympathetic or like Cal, but this episode was all about pushing the likability of certain characters like Rue, who have such likable actors like Zendaya, and then trying to show a little bit more of an empathy towards a character like Cal and see that like this has always been a part of his backstory, this has always been the reason he is the way that he is, you're just now seeing it for the first time, and how does that recontextualize who he is in the rest of the show. And I think that the actor that plays him needs so much more credit because he's not only one of those scariest characters in the show, someone I would literally sprint away from if I ever saw him walking down the street, but yet there are certain moments like when Ashtray is like beating him over the head that you just really do, in a weird way, even though you hate him, sort of feel for him. And I think that's just a really powerful acting tool that he uses as this character specifically. There were some great quotes this episode. The two that I really loved was when Elliot is being interrogated by Jules and he says, "You sound like you're navigating a Twitter thread." I thought that was hilarious. And then I love when Rue is trying to talk to Lori about being kind of a drug runner, and she says, "Steve Jobs is my hero," because girls, same. That made me laugh. You know how much of an Apple, Mac, Steve Jobs nerd I am. That one gave me a chuckle. My favorite episode from season 2 is Detective Rue, when she does her slideshows and she's talking about certain types of inappropriate pictures. If you saw season 1, you know exactly what I'm talking about. And in this one, she does a slideshow about how to hide that you're a drug addict from friends and family. I love that slideshow usage. I love the different film cameras they use. I love the switching of angles. I love how they use mirrors. I also love that now she has a partner in crime, Elliot. I think that really kind of gives you an insight into how her relationship with drugs is intrinsically linked to her relationship with Elliot. And I also love that there's a reference back to season 1's episode that was just like this, which was fantastic. And it's also the playing that this show does with the breaking of the fourth wall is my favorite part of this show. I feel like deconstructing Euphoria as a drama, as this teen show, it adds not only to the experience but to the meaning of what these characters think about the permanence of youth. I'm using that as a quote because someone said that in this episode, like how and when you're young everything feels permanent. I feel like it was Lexi when she's discussing her show, which is her play, when you get to see inside the minds of the teenagers away from the drama that is the diegetic thing that we watch, that we know as Euphoria. When you break that down, everything about being a teenager feels constructed and also like you're in control at the same time, but then it also feels like you could be a part of this drama, but it's also like a comedy. The way that this show infuses comedy, drama, like a very fourth wall is stable, and like this is the diegetic world versus characters who actually address you, the audience, about the things that they're doing. That is my favorite thing about the show, is the way that they're able to mess with that, honestly. I don't know why this comparison is coming to mind, but it reminds me of Rick and Morty in a lot of ways, where it is intelligent and it pushes boundaries and it doesn't always make perfect sense why they're doing things that they're doing, but it's all been intentionally chosen and it makes for an experience that is just totally unique amongst any other type of show that tries to be similar, and I absolutely love that. I also love that Fez is really asking the right questions about Cal and Nate's relationship, because as father and son, they do clearly have the worst parent-child relationship in the show. And the show is full of complicated parent-child relationships, but they have the worst one. And Fez is out here asking, like, why are you guys this way? What kind of relationship? You guys do some mess up stuff. Why are you into the same girl? That is just weird. I also love that Ashtray was just able to give a little bit of a whooping to Cal because he deserved it. I also really love how we're getting to see different sides of each character. In this season, we saw all of the characters' initial presentation of themselves in season 1. We saw Cappy super confident. Now we see her struggling to know who she is. We see Nathan going out for a play, as that's something he's always been interested in. Jules has a different haircut. Rue is trying to hide the fact that she's a drug addict, and Sam Levinson again talked about in that Euphoria, and talks about how this season he really wanted to push the likability that Zendaya has in how far he's taken the character of Rue Bennett, and it's so good. It genuinely, I hate to sound like a broken record and just be like, this show's so good, but it does things that just make me think about the art of filmmaking and of television. And I think about Zendaya, and I think I don't know a single person who doesn't like her or who can't objectively state how beautiful she is and things, and then you see her in a show like this doing the questionable things that Rue does, and you really do think to yourself, like, if this was a real person in my life, this is terrible behavior, especially up against somebody like a Cal Jacobs, right, who is at the forefront of this episode at the very beginning of it. You think about how Rue, we got to see the empathetic side of her, and now we're going into more of seeing her as a villain. I love that this show is pushing those boundaries and flipping your perspective. What did you think of tonight's episode of Euphoria, though? Please let me know in a comment down below. Please also be sure to like this review if you enjoyed it, and consider subscribing, because I do weekly Euphoria reviews as well as a ton of other TV and movie related content. Thank you so much for watching. Have an absolutely amazing night, and I'll see you in my very next video. Bye, y'all.